Sadulu House Spiritual Center would like to invite you to join our learning community by encouraging you to sign up for our monthly webinars. Our webinars offer live interactive instruction designed to help empower you in your spiritual evolution and ritual work. The webinars we provide are purposed to help you dive deeper into the concepts and calculations of the chief Jegna of Anu Nation, Heru Yuya Asan Anu, through the decoding and exploration of sound, symbol, ancient and contemporary texts, and various other tools used to invoke a state of highest awareness. We are able to abandon the constrictions of dead thought to travel to higher states of awareness, which is our rightful designation. To view our list of webinars, go to saduluhouse.com/events. Topics for 2016 include meditation, spiritual cleansing, astral projection, chakras, crystals, water magic, candle magic, the third eye, animal totems, dreams, and sex magic. Remember, go to saduluhouse.com/events to register. Greetings. Peace, everyone. Welcome to Community Radio. I'm your host, Kim, and today is Thursday. I just want to say thank you all for tuning in. If you're listening from the internet or if you're actually on the call, to call in and comment on any of the conversations that we may have today, just call 347-945-7680 and press the number 1, and I'll make sure I see your hand raised and get you in. So today we're going to kind of pick up where we left off from Tuesday, and I read something on, going through the social media files today that I was going to discuss a little bit of, and then we'll talk about some other things as well. And of course, if you have anything that's on your mind, feel free to bring it up and we can discuss it. I first want to do some new announcements to let you all know what's going on. Of course, we have all of the classes on saduluhouse.com. This is where you can go to sign up for a new spiritual training phase 1, as well as the classes that I facilitate on different spiritual concepts. So make sure you visit saduluhouse.com. AnuNation.org is the hub of everything, the hub website, and this is where you can find links to everything else. If you want to schedule a reading, you can go to askosiris.com, and you can still find links to schedule readings on all of the websites. So you can do it on Sadulu House, you can do it on Anu Nation, you can do it on Enlightenment and Transformation. Speaking of which, Enlightenment and Transformation is the media component of Anu Nation, and this is where all of our archive shows, blogs, everything can be found. So you can go to enlightenmentandtransformation.com, or you can check out our YouTube page under the same name. So all of the old shows from Masterminds Monday, Anua Safo, Thunderground Thursday, Chief Speaks, Foundational Fridays, and some of the earlier shows that Chief did, they are all on that site. So if you missed anything and you want to kind of catch up to what's going on, make sure you visit those sites. Again, it's like I'm pretty sure it's over 500 shows now. So some of the topics that people have questions about or anything, I'm pretty sure you can find them in the archives. So you can go there, and you can also search the archives on Blog Talk Radio as well. Let's see. If you would like to join some of the things that we're doing with Anu Nation, make sure you go to anulifeglobal.org and hit the Join Our Community button. And there's a form that you can fill out there. And when you fill that form out, make sure you let us know what you would like to contribute or what you would like to do and why. And you can also use that form to sign up for the Monday calls that we have for women. So every Monday, we do like a Google Hangout, and we kind of chat about some of the concepts that Chief goes over. We talk about just female stuff, if we're going through some things, because it's really like a support thing for women, that are coming into some of Chief's teachings. We talk about the classes, different spiritual concepts, and whatever else, comes up. So that's for all the women that are new coming in, and you might have some questions. Women need community. We like to talk. So we do this hangout every Monday. So make sure when you go to A New Life Global, if you want to be a part of that, to specify that as well in your letter. So today's Thursday, and I just want to say peace to everyone. And one of the things I wanted to bring up, and I found this pretty interesting, there's a black moon today. And so this is going to be the second new moon of the month. And for many people, we go with the meaning of kind of the spiritual meaning of a new moon, which is, new beginnings. This is a time to, start over, or to make plans, or to start new projects. But I read somewhere that many people are saying that this is like signifying the end of days. It's a sign of the apocalypse. And the reasoning behind it was because of the eclipse that we had at the beginning of the month, and this black moon today. So they were, I guess, comparing it to some Bible verses where it talks about, a ring of fire, and the moon turning black, and these being signs of the apocalypse. So this is new to me because, as I've told you before, I'm not super, versed in Christianity. I didn't grow up. I didn't really, I wasn't brought up in that, strictly growing up. So some of this is new. So when I saw this, I thought, I've heard of it. I've heard of these, the scriptures that they refer to, but I just really didn't put it all together, just because, it's not my belief system. But, I just thought it was interesting. So I was like, what, let me ask the listening audience today on the show, what do they think about it? Because I know that we have a lot of listeners that are, as Tori Amos would say, recovering Christians. And maybe this has some validity to it. Do you think so? Do you think we're like at the end of days? What do you think? So we've got a couple of people with their hands up. I'm going to go ahead and go to them, and we'll get things started today. 512, you're on Community Radio. Peace.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good, I'm well.
Awesome. So that moon you were talking about, did you hear that it was called the Black Moon?
Mm-hmm.
And I heard that it was representative of some kind of major shift within everybody.
Okay.
And I'm not certain if it's a shift as in, moving forward or releasing kind of shift, or positive or negative. I have no idea, but I tried to do a little Google search on it, but I only spent a couple seconds.
Okay.
So I really didn't get much information on it. But I'm kind of interested in it. I've never heard of the Black Moon.
Okay. All right. Well, like I was saying, this is like this, usually we say the moon kind of turns black when there's a new moon. This is a point in the moon cycle where, the moon is, like people say, it will start to get bigger. We have a waning phase, we have a waxing phase. So it's about to go into the waxing phase. So it comes to a point where, there's almost no light shining on the moon, so it looks black. And then we go into a waxing period until we get to the next, full moon. So most people that are into spirituality and metaphysics and everything say that a new moon is a time where you start new projects because the energy is increasing. And this also kind of goes back to like farmers' almanacs. I don't know if you remember those, but farmers like would plant new crops and everything on a new moon because the moon has to do with the ocean tides and it affects, feminine energy and all this other kind of stuff. So people say that it's a time of growth, since the energy is increasing. So this is a time to start new things. But as I was reading in this article, some people were saying that it is a sign of the apocalypse. And it's due to a few Bible verses, because we had a solar eclipse at the beginning of the month, and now we have this black moon. So I was just trying to get some input from the audience about what they think. Some people that may be Christian, or that have heard, that are familiar with those verses. I'm not too familiar with it, so I was just trying to get their opinion on it. But that's what people were saying about it.
Honestly, I wasn't raised in a church, so I'm very spiritual, not religious. So I wouldn't know anything about. That. Sorry.
Okay. I'm going to bring another caller in. And feel free, this is like an open conversation. I don't know if this is your first time calling in or not, but it's an open conversation. So you can just, unmute your phone when you'd like to chime in, or if you have a comment or anything, or if you want to change the subject, it's fine. I'm not going to mute your mic, but you can mute it on your end so that we won't pick up your background noise. I'm going to go to, thanks for calling. I'm going to go to 347. Peace.
Peace, Sister Cameron. How are you?
How are you? I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Or Earth Day.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's been a great one so far. So
good.
I'm calling to comment on the topic. And I'm sorry if the baby's a little ruckus in the background. But I grew up Catholic, but not really devoted. Hold on, baby. And what I've noticed is, transitioning from religion to spirituality is that a lot of the things that religion said to be scared of was actually the most powerful. So I'm thinking that maybe this moon is actually really special, and it's a really good moon for us to manifest and give our intentions. And they're calling it the end of times because they actually want us to be scared of it instead of using the energy in our favor, which is like usually the pattern with religion, especially the Catholic religion. But I actually I came across this theory. I cannot believe it because I wouldn't be surprised, but I heard that the Roman calendar is 365 days on purpose, because the extra 5 days on the year kind of like puts the natural rhythms out of whack slightly. So the Mayan calendar, when it predicted the 2012 shift, it's actually this December. This December 21st. But the Roman calendar, the way it's set up, is actually keeping us almost like a bit off sync of our natural rhythms.
Right.
So we're entering like this huge metaphysical shift phase that is very powerful, and they don't want us to know about it. They, quote unquote they, but it's like done on purpose. So I don't know how true that is, because I really haven't done my own research and how the calendar is supposed to be. But it kind of makes sense because there's 5 extra days in the year with those months that have 31 days. I'm gonna let you go though. I'm gonna leave it at that because my baby's calling me. She's about to freak out.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, sis.
Okay. Thanks, Michelle. Peace.
Peace.
All right. So that comment from Michelle, that was interesting. I had not read that the actual 2012 shift was supposed to be now. So that adds even another twist to the conspiracy theories about this black moon. If you've heard anything about that, please enlighten us. I'd like to hear more about it. I haven't actually heard that, but I do know that, the calendar dates and everything have been all screwed up and shifted and days dropped and all this kind of stuff. I mean, you can just look at it with the names of the month. We have October's out of place, December's out of place, September's out of place. I mean, November's out of place. It just goes on and on and on. So that even reveals, some things have been screwed around with the calendar. So, I'm not sure. Like, I'm taking this new moon as, this black moon as kind of like a supercharged new moon, but I had no idea about all these, end of days theories and the 2012, conscious shift and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't know about it, but I don't know. It's a good time for new moon rituals, new projects, new plans. In my opinion, this is what I use the new moon for. So to shift the topic a little bit, Tuesday we were also talking about the debate between Hillary and Trump. We discussed that a little bit, and then we jumped on the 62-day fast challenge that Chief brought up in Chief Speaks on last Sunday. And so Anwar, one of our listeners, and supporters and students wanted to challenge everybody to give up something for 62 days that you are, used to having, or something that you feel like you just can't live without. And so I think his thing that he was giving up was cigars. And so we're going to check in on him today and see how he's doing, as well as everybody else that has agreed to kind of join in or jump on the challenge, and see how you all are faring. 62 days is a long time for a fast. I've done some fast. I think the longest fast was, I did one about a month and a half ago or so for a few weeks, and then I did like a 21-day fast. But 62 days, that's a long time. So I don't know how I'll do with this one, honestly, I really haven't fully committed to it. I'm just gonna let that out. But yeah, that's a long time. So if you have decided to give up something for 62 days or even half the time, let us know about it and let us know, how it's going. So we'll see. Anwar, the last time we checked in with him, he was giving himself like a week's time to kind of taper off a little bit from smoking by, switch to, heard he was about to burn it up the last time or chunk it, because he absolutely, does not like them. So we'll see how he's doing this week. I don't know if any of you have any experience with those. I've kind of wondered about those. I don't know. It's like, is it just because he described it as some type of wax or something? I don't know if it's like a wax. I thought it was like just water vapor and, a small amount of nicotine. So I'm not sure, how it works or whatever. But I even hear that like you still can't even smoke like these e-cigarettes or whatever inside, even though it's not emitting any smoke. So I don't know. And then people are saying there are health concerns with it, that they're just as bad as cigarettes or whatever. So I don't know. I'm not that familiar with them. So again, if you are more enlightened on the subject, just let us know. All right. So let's see. We don't have any hands up as of now, but we do have some callers on the line. So I do want to encourage you all to tune in, and if you have a comment, raise your hand and I'll make sure I get to you. Again, the number is 347-945-7680. Just press the number 1. So I'm going to take a quick second to go to some commercials, and I'll be right back. What is water? Why is water used in so many rituals? Why are female deities linked to water? Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu is credited for saying water is fluid, soft, and yielding, but water will wear away rock, which is rigid and cannot yield. As a rule, whatever is fluid, soft, and yielding will overcome what is rigid and hard. This is another paradox. What is soft is strong. What do those three examples have to do with magic and ritual? Gain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of water by enrolling in Sadulu House's class-based webinar, Water Magic. To sign up for this class or any of the other classes offered by Sadulu House, go to saduluhouse.com/store. Are you ready to take action and rise to the next stage of your evolution? Then monthly life coaching services at osirislife.com are just for you. Osiris Life does not just focus on spiritual development. We offer a holistic approach to helping you realize your goals and teach you the tools to overcome any barriers to your success. Services at Osiris Life are provided on a monthly basis and include, but are not limited to, spiritual consultations and one-on-one coaching, instructionals via podcasts and videos, life mapping and goal tracking, anonymity, spiritual work done on your behalf, and there are 3 package levels to choose from. Take the steps to get your life on track and flourishing by purchasing a subscription package today at osirislife.com. All right, welcome back. And again, you are with Kim for Community Radio. Today's Thursday. This is the end of the Strong, and so this is going to be the last show this Strong. And today we're kind of talking about, I guess, some, this can fall in the conspiracy theory category. We're talking about the black moon. We're talking about the election, Hillary versus Trump, and also the 62-day fast. And so I was saying earlier that today we have a black moon, and this is the second new moon in the month. And so I just, pretty much took it as that, just the second, new moon. But as I was doing a little bit of research, I found that this is, some people say, it's a powerful time for new beginnings, for manifestation, and things of that sort. But some people are saying that this is like a sign of the end of days. The apocalypse is upon us, So according to Christian belief, or Christian, I will say Christian conspiracy theorists, they're saying that because we had this solar eclipse at the beginning of the month, beginning of September, which they take as, they're saying that this is the ring of fire. And now we have this black moon. They're comparing it to some Bible verses. I think I'm looking now, it's in the book of Matthew, where it reads, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. So they're saying that, the sun turning black was, the beginning, the eclipse at the beginning of the month, and then we have this black moon all in the same month is a sign of the end of days. So, like I said, and then there's also a reference to Luke, some verses in Luke. So, like I said, I'm not a Christian. I don't familiar with all of the, beliefs and everything, or some of the things that they say, about natural occurrences. But do you think it's a sign? It's the sign of the end of the days and the world's about to end, or what do you think about it? So just a question. I'll go to 757. Peace, you're on Community Radio.
Peace. This is Tamiko. I'm in Virginia. Enjoying the show. Greetings. Enjoying the show so far. I wanted to compliment on a couple of things.
Okay.
One, I was interested in what the sister was saying earlier about the calendar. I know for a long time, being on this path that I'm on spiritually, that I've come to understand that we don't really know what day it is. Like, I realize it's like even with a calendar to help us get through the week and get where we need to go and everything, in truth, we really don't know what day it is exactly, what month it is. Everything has been so changed around and shifted for other people's agendas and everything that we really truly don't know, because time, just if you're trying to measure time the way that they're doing it now, you really don't know what day it is. You can only go by the moon cycles and things like that. So getting to the moon, I love the new moon and full moon. I try to observe it when I remember to do it. And actually, I forgot that there was a black moon until you just said something. And so, but what I found out about all of that is, or what I realized about all of that through meditation and everything, even with the new moon and some of my Christian background and whatnot, is that, the end of the world or the end of days, I think, is more or less a shift in consciousness, as opposed to, okay, we're just sitting at home and then all of a sudden the world going to blow up and none of us are going to be here. I think it's more or less or somebody going to push a button and the bombs are going to go off. So I think it's more or less a shift in consciousness and how it's the end of things as we know it, as opposed to, everything is just going to blow up and we're never going to be here on the face of the earth. I just think, the world was here way before humanity, and I think it's going to be here way after we're gone. So that's just my opinion. So.
Okay, so you think it's more of like a, just kind of the shift maybe into a new age or new, like the end of Aquarius and on to another cycle of time or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's different levels of it. It's kind of like that if you're dealing with this astrology type of thing where it goes from one age, Pisces, which is and then into Aquarius, which is more or less when you look at the attributes of what an Aquarius is and being more humanitarian and thinking more about your fellow man, brothers and sisters, and being more, connected to who you are in terms of your duality and things like that. But it can be about that, but I think it goes a little bit deeper with us as individuals, too, that it's like the end of, we can have an end of the world at any point in time during the week. In terms of whatever we believed in, and then something can happen to shatter all of those beliefs and completely destroy us from the inside out. And we're like, oh, I thought it was this way, but now life is showing me or teaching me through experience is actually this. Or maybe we had to let go of something in a transformation, and then we realize, okay, this is really where my life is supposed to go. So I think it can be as grand as the whole world feeling it to something that's very much an individual experience as well. So it's just different ways.
I think that's an excellent point that you brought out. Like you said, it can be, the end of the world can be a very individualistic experience. I don't think, like you said, I don't think a lot of people realize that. I know, just in speaking to, a few people that have come out of, like, say, a previous, religious belief, or who have changed religions or whatever. It is very much like what you stated. Like, it is the end of the world for them. It's very devastating because it just really breaks up their entire foundation of everything, of how to do and think about, how to react or how to think about things, it completely, like the bottom just completely fell out for them. So yeah, I think that's a good point that you brought up, that it can be a very individualistic thing, and it can mean the end of the world to some people. So when we hear about things like this in in the Bible or whatever, perhaps maybe at that time, when the Bible was, when that book was written, maybe something was going on with the Catholic Church, or maybe something was going on at that time that meant the end of the world or whatever for the people of that time. Maybe that's it. I don't know.
Exactly. I mean, that's the truth. That's my whole thing right there. It's like, after a while, I just had to realize that one of the most powerful things I could ever say on my spiritual journey is, I don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
I just don't know. It's like, I research. I do a lot of studying. Sometimes I'm almost ad nauseum, and then I have to pull myself back from studying for a little while if I feel like I'm taking in too much. And it's like, after a while, I just realize on certain things, I just don't know. It's just like individual life, like the end of the world. I did feel that way once I decided to step away from Christianity back in 2000 and, decided to let me research these different spiritual paths and religions and stuff like that and see if there's something that fits. And it was just a complete shattering, especially once I started learning more about African culture and history and what's been taken from us, and and all these different things that I didn't know or wasn't shared with us as a community. That really shattered a lot of things for me. So it does feel like the end of the world. Like, what? Why would you lie to a God? So, it can happen even on a very personal level, whether it's, changing relationships, marriages, divorce, that could feel like the end of the world, that losing your job or losing a friend or something like that. All of that can feel like the end of the world. It just depends on how do I choose to look at it. In the world, like this election can seem like the end of the world for people in terms of whether he actually did get elected. That could be the end of the world for us, in terms of not necessarily him sending bombs somewhere, but just feeling like, okay, wow, we were already in a bad way. Now, where it's really going to go now? So,
so how did you handle your transition out of that? Because, I've heard some people say, like, if they didn't have Christianity or whatever system they were in, like, they'd be a complete savage. Like, they would rob, kill, rape, do drugs. I mean, they literally said these things. Like, that Bible and that book civilized them just that much. So how did you handle, coming out of that or transitioning into something else? Was it scary for you to start to look at different ideas? And how did you feel, letting go of something that you believed in for so long?
That's a good question. And during that time, it was like, I really did feel scared, and I didn't tell anybody. It took a long while before I shared that with anyone that was real close to me at that time, because everybody I knew was, Christian of some type, So it's like, I mean that by denomination and all of that, or Catholic or something. So it's like, okay, I'm not going to tell anybody. It was a conscious decision that I made because I just woke up one day and realized I'm not really feeling fed spiritually. And I read it somewhere. I can't remember where I read this quote between religion and spirituality, and I can't remember where I read that. I was at Books A Million one day in my hometown, and it's like, okay, there's a difference between religion and spirituality, and that kind of sparked everything. So it's like, okay, let me start looking into that a little bit deeper, because I realized, okay, it's just a religion it's like a routine. Then I started realizing, okay, people make up these religions. This is not, it's this person who decided to create something, which means any of us could create a religion.
Right. Exactly.
Then that felt more scary to me than actually walking away.
Ah, the fact that anybody could make a religion up?
Mhm. Yeah, the fact that anybody can just make a religion up. And then when I started reading more about, the enslavement, the transatlantic slave trade, and how that was used to, I guess you could say, like you said, civilize our people and things like that. And it just started to feel more, it became easier to let go internally. And it had to start internally with me. But it took me a long time before I would say anything. And sometimes I still get nervous. 16 years later, I still get nervous about, sharing with people. And what I ended up with, I've tried so many different things since Christianity. But my base, which feels more like a way of life. But I'm also a practitioner of yoga for the past 12 years as well. So I combine those. And I'm definitely earth-based because I realize that even in Buddhism, there's a reverence for the earth. There's nature. I love nature. I was just going by what's naturally going on with me, and I'll just work with that. So.
Okay. Awesome. So why did knowing that like any person could make up a religion, why did that scare you the most?
Because I realized that when you listen to let me put it back on me. When I listened to what people were saying from a pulpit, that this is something that was handed down by God, and this is what we're supposed to do. This is the only way to go. These things kind of bothered me. It was like, okay, well, what they're saying and what I'm finding out in a research and in a communication meditation with God are two different things. And then that became kind of scary for me. So it was like, okay, well, that means I can sit here and create religion and, and just do it, and then maybe share it with some people, and then they might feeling it or something like that, and just move on. So, and then some people might say, oh, that's terrible, and then other people might be down for it. And it just kind of, I could see how it would be that easy for someone to just be able to do it. So it's like religion is man-made. It doesn't necessarily, not all religions are, I don't even think they're all bad, not even Christianity, actually. But I think it's based on astrology and different things from African culture, but now that I've studied a lot, but it's like, that just scared me for a minute. It was like, okay, but I realized even with what I like about Buddhism, that's something that came from a human being who was just going through his experience, but it wasn't necessarily something that, like, it has no dogma with it. I guess that's what, it doesn't have, like, this whole thing of you got to do this or otherwise you're going to burn if you do. And I think that's what got me about it in terms of this is something that somebody else created, and it's like you have to do it. If you don't do it, then your whole world is just going to be destroyed. If you don't do it, you're not going to be able to live through life and function and be civilized. And what I realized in my transition is that that's the actual opposite. I felt more spiritual and more close to God when I walked away. I was just like, okay, this is interesting. So,
but they do have some things in that practice that you won't necessarily go to a fiery pit and burn forever and ever and ever, but they do have like some things where you have to recite certain sutras and do certain things in order to avoid being reborn into a lower life form, so to speak. So there's So there are some things, you know, about it that are just as much religious, because it still wants someone's experience. And I'm not shooting it down, because I went through a phase of Buddhism too, and there are still some sutras that I really do love and that I really do still chant to this day. But one thing that you were saying is that, you know, like, you could even start a religion. Did that not make you feel empowered? Like, why did it make you go from one religion to another religion when you had that spark to say, that spark said, I could even create a religion? Did it make you feel a little bit guilty still? You know, did some of that Christian stuff still kind of linger a little bit when you thought about it, because you had the thought to say, I could create my own, but was there something in you that said, no, that's still kind of blasphemous, like, I can't make my own religion?
Oh, you know, actually, I never actually thought of it in the sense of I'm naturally a person who blends things. So even though, like, that's the bulk of what it is that I use, I don't really read a whole lot of the sutras. Like, the main sutra I ever read was the Heart Sutra. And I like the Teyata Gate Gate chant that I use a lot, and one for healing. But I think what it was for me was looking at like the Eightfold Path or something. What I realized is that I'm a person who don't like a lot of structure. So that's how I kind of deal with a religion now that I've studied so many, is just, how can I tailor make this for myself? So you're right, it did empower me to realize I can work with this and do it the way I want to do it, as opposed to doing it exactly the way someone says, oh, you got to do it this way and this way and this way in order for it to work for you. So I realized, you know, even spirituality and religion is, you know, it's not one size fits all. So I can tailor make it however I want to. If I just want to use the Eightfold Path and a few little chants that I came across, some mantras, but then adding some things from the Hindu perspective with yoga from that perspective, and add those things in. And then I've studied Wicca before and did that for several years, and some of that still lingers with me. It's kind of like I find myself blending. I find myself blending, creating something in a way that I am creating something of my own, because it's not just someone saying, okay, are you a Buddhist? I'm like, that's just the base of what I start with, because I'm working on my mind. So, and that's the thing that attracted me, working on my mind and navigating the human experience the best way I can. So,
okay.
It's kind of,
have you ever studied? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, please.
I was going to ask, have you ever studied any African systems?
Okay. Yes, I have. A little bit, I will say. I've studied a little bit of Ifa, and I realized that I've heard of, like, Santeria and Candomblé and all these things. It's like 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It's like all Yoruba, but it's just different locations. And Vodun. I have, and it's all nature-based, it seems to me, and even with the Orishas, I feel, you know, I've been told, actually, I've gotten a couple of consultations from Chief Yuya before.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask, like, how did you come to hear about us? That's what I was trying to get.
I was 14, actually, so, you know, and he let me know who I asked about my crown Orisha, like, who would be, like, the main one that I connect with naturally. Everything. So I kind of look at the alignment with everything. It all seems very similar, some of it, but not all of it. But how I came to listening to Enlightenment and Transformation, that was like, back in 2013.
Okay. Okay.
Just, typing in some keywords on Blog Talk Radio, and it popped up, and I started listening.
Okay. Well, thank you for your support and listening for so long.
Oh.
Yeah, and
no
thank
problem.
you for sharing your journey as well. I know, like I said, coming out of different belief systems can be, like you said, just as traumatizing as someone would say, would be the end of the world. So it is like the end of the world for some people. You lose family members, you lose friends, you kind of even go into a slight depression because it's like you said, it's like everything you ever thought is like turned upside down. So it can be a tough process for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that seems to be the main story with a lot of people I've met that transition out of particularly Christianity and just kind of looking for something else. It's like we all, just kind of, it's like it just seems like the story is very similar no matter who it is. We all have different things. Everybody feels like this. Like, I felt guilty, like I'm doing something wrong at first.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm sure because there are a lot of hang-ups in that. I don't even want to say it's in the religion. Maybe it's in the interpretations that we get, from different denominations of that religion. I don't know, because like I said, I didn't get into it too heavy, but I do know some of the rhetoric that comes along with it. And it's very guilt-based. Like, if you don't do this, this will happen to you. If you don't do that, and you don't question God, you just follow, you don't ask questions, you don't do, it's like a lot of don't. And like, if you do, this will happen, like everything is kind of doomsday based. Like everything's gonna go just horribly wrong for you if you step outside the box a little bit. So it makes you feel guilty. It makes you feel guilty and very and powerless, I think. So when you hear Chief or somebody else talk about these concepts where you are your own, you are your you are the highest energy. You're older than the Orisha. You're older than the angels. You command them, or you do like you have this much power. That's like a huge shift coming from a religion that states that that you're you're this person born out of sin and you're guilty from birth, all this other kind of, all these other kind of thoughts. So yeah, I can imagine that, just even reading about another religion can make you feel like you're about to go to hell.
That's very true. Because coming from their background, it is very disempowering. You feel like you have absolutely no power, no kind of, there's not anything that you have that's really worth anything. If you're being told that you're a sinner from the moment of conception, then you don't really feel like you have to offer the world.
You can't do anything.
It's like, well, wow. It's like, okay, so it's like, a child growing up and somebody, his parent or whatever telling him, you ain't worth a nickel. From the moment of being little, and you grow up with it for the rest of your life. And maybe your life might be a reflection of taking all of that in and being, well, since I'm not worth anything, then you start acting like that. So, that was a huge thing for me, too. And the whole thing about not questioning God. So one of the first things I did was grab a journal, went into meditation, and I started asking questions. I rebelled on what I was being taught. It's like, the question, God's like, well, I'm not asking questions. So, it's a very interesting process to go through, and sometimes it still lingers even today. It's like, no matter how long you stepped away, or been away from that path, depending on how deep you were in it. You know,
Right.
It's like it really takes a while to get all of that flushed out of you. Because then there's scariness with understanding how powerful you are too. So.
Yes, definitely, because it makes you have to now be accountable and responsible for a lot of things. I'm going to bring in a couple of other callers that have their hand up. I'm not going to mute your mic. You can just keep it open and continue the conversation when you feel like you want to make a comment or whatever. But thank you for your testimony and for sharing your story with us. I'm going to go to 240. Greetings, you're on Community Radio.
Greetings. How are you?
Peace. How are you?
I am blessed. This is Marcy Kim. I'm really enjoying the show today, and just to piggyback off what the young lady just spoke about, because I'm dealing with some of the same issues that she's dealing with, coming from a Christian background and, learning all of these new things now. I do feel guilty because, this is what I was brought up in, and, coming from the South, we was always, church basically every Sunday, every Wednesday, and all of this good stuff. And so, so I do feel like she do with the guilt, and I think it's somewhat of being afraid of the unknown.
Right.
Being afraid of the unknown, and so I don't know if it's because of when we were first brought over, from Africa, and then all of a sudden we was taught Christianity, or we was told, and this is what we grew up on. And if we, veer away from these beliefs, then God knows what's going to happen to us.
Right.
So I totally get what she's saying.
It's definitely, like I said, it's definitely a huge shift in thought. And even for me, I wasn't, like I said, my parents didn't make me go to church. We didn't go to church or anything. But of course, their parents, were, in church, or, they didn't go to church as often. I don't remember. I don't think so. But I wasn't made to do that. So, but even still, like you said, it's the idea of getting up, going to church on Sunday. You go Wednesday night. You got to do this. Go to Bible school, whatever. It's the ritual of it all. The culture of it is what I want to say. That's what I want to say. It's the culture of it, not necessarily even the teachings, because most Christians don't really know the Bible like they claim to know the Bible. But it's more of the culture. There's a lot of them that don't. It's more the culture of it, and like you said, the rituals of it all. Because even though I wasn't, raised by those beliefs, I could still feel the heaviness or some of the guilt transferred onto me through my parents, even though they didn't practice anything or believe it, but they still had that fear in them. So when I started very young, as soon as I was able to read, I remember, being in school, going to, the library, picking up any little book that I saw a little black girl on, because I'm trying to figure out what's going on here, so, and, just sitting down reading encyclopedias all the time. I wanted to know, like, very early on, I was fascinated with culture and religion. So when I got older and I started to study these different things in depth, and they saw me going to mosque, I think, when I started studying Islam, started studying Buddhism, going through all these different systems, they didn't know what to do. It like completely freaked them out, even though they weren't Christians, so to speak. You know what I mean? So, even for those of us who aren't necessarily, religious in the sense that we go to church every week and, you know, we go through the culture and the rituals of it, you know, to say, and to even just say, I don't celebrate Christmas or I don't celebrate holidays or something, that's still like devastating to some of us, to some people who even claim that, you know, they aren't Christians. So, yeah, I mean, and especially going to a tradition that's African based, because of course we were taught to hate everything about ourselves. So to get into that African stuff, that voodoo stuff, like, that's demonic.
Right.
You know, because that's the first thing that Black people think about any African tradition that is demonic, is evil. So, you know, that especially freaks them out, even to this day. But thank you for your comment. I'm gonna again leave you on, and you can keep commenting as you like. If you'd like to mute your mic, that's fine. I'm gonna go. A couple more people have their hands up. I'm gonna go to 864. Greetings, you're on Community Radio. How are you today?
Peace, love, and power. This is Brother Equani calling from South Carolina. How's the family?
Peace. How are you? We're well.
I'm doing great.
Good.
Just kind of tuning into the conversation, and, you know, here in 2016, the way we deal with not only religion, which is, you know, an infrastructure that was handed down to us via our oppressors. Religion is an infrastructure that was handed down to us via our oppressor. When we go back looking at African ATRs or African traditional religions, if we would call them that, you know, you just look at the dynamics of the thing that one would call religion, okay? Because according to the African elders, when you ask them what is their religion, or if they have something that would be comparative to God, when asked that, the elders would state the grouping of family, the unity, the importance of unity, ancestral veneration has been and always has been important within African culture and African tradition. And when we look here in America, 80% of our Black people, which are, I'm going to say, African in nature, absolutely, we forget about our ancestors, all to remember the ancestors of our oppressors. You know, even as we, you know, go mingle, and the sister was just talking about voodoo. Voodoo is basically practical magic. A lot of times people are so afraid of it, and then they don't realize that they participate wholeheartedly in it. Even when you look at the church, how, you know, our people participate in communion, drinking the blood, also eating the body. This ritual of sacrifice, of, you know, something being played, this is how they keep us in the same, you know, the same place of somewhat of a lockdown. So I think what we're going through right now, it does allow us, and it is forcing us to go back and fetch, which when you look at the word Sankofa, that's what the word Sankofa means. You might see the bird that's associated with it, but it means to go back and fetch. Go back and fetch the ways of our ancestors. We aren't a Johnny come lately. So even when we look at the Bible, a lot of our people take that and utilize that for themselves. But this is a literary work which proves itself as being untrue. It's not a historical reference. It's not. A lot of our even scholars, they take this and they're using it as a historical reference. It's not that at all. How can we prove that? Because if you go right now to Google and Google Jesus, which, you know, Google has and stores a lot of our intellectual property and documents and things of that nature. When you go check it out, every image that you have of Jesus is European in nature. And when you look at the description that's in the word, the quote-unquote Bible, it has a whole completely different description from the one that is likened to the Bible, with straight hair, blue eyes, and white, you know. And like I said, because once you go into the word, there's something about Jesus having the head of wood and feet of burnt brass or bronze or something to that nature. Eyes like fire. They're more descriptive, but we never see that that content. We always see the whitewashing of this thing. And that right there in itself is blasphemous, or the thing that they call blasphemy is right there embedded into the whole makeup of that work. You understand what I'm saying? So for us to take this as serious, you know, I really think we should definitely ask more questions, not encouraging anyone to up and leave their religion, but I think you should definitely be inquisitive on what that relationship is with that religion to you as an African people, and knowing that we were here long before any of these Abrahamic, these European religions came around. We always celebrated Ma'at inside African culture, and specifically going back to Kemet. If it's not Ma'at, it's going to be something to that degree, not where we had to have someone standing over us and saying, thou shalt not, like a child. We would say, I am not, I have not done this. I am not of these things. You understand? Not thou shalt not, because that's what kind of puts us in the place of a child. So I really feel like there's a lot of deciphering and a lot of questions we do have to ask and get down to questioning of ourselves. And it's a lot of application of scholarship that we're going to have to apply, and not mysticism. Not just because somebody told us a fairy tale was going to go get our tooth. We need to add and provide science and say, well, damn, can somebody actually fly through here and pick up my tooth and say, well, nah, if it's not logical within those contents and within those parameters, we have to throw that off the shelf. We need to.
Mm-hmm. So how do you feel about, because, you know, of course I do practice an African-based system, but even when you go back to the continent today, for the most part, a lot of countries are Christian and Muslim, Christian and Islamic. And a lot of Africans have moved far away from any type of African-based belief. You can see it just in, you know, in their movies. You know, most of their movies, if you're a Nollywood fan, most of their movies are about that dynamic, holding on to tradition or getting with the modern time. When I remember when I did the Anu Asafo show, I interviewed a couple of filmmakers, the ones that produced Ancestral Voices. And that's basically what that series that they have was about getting back to African spirituality. And it was a husband and wife team, and the husband was actually from Ghana, I believe he said. Ghana or Nigeria, I think it was Ghana. But even he said growing up, like, they were pretty much Christian. And so now they're located in England. But he was saying, for the most part, most Africans, even in England, don't associate with African spirituality at all. They have the outlook that most of us in the West, well, I ain't gonna say most of it, but a lot of us have here in the West, that it's evil, that, you know, it's something bad. So they're like us, you know, back in slavery times, or back in, you know, pre-civil rights, you know, times. It's like going back a few hundred years with them, but they have that outlook on it. But even in, you know, Kemetic mythology, you see that Osiris is to be resurrected in the West. So it's like we are the people that are supposed to bring forth this new identity, so to speak, or new life. So I feel that, you know, a lot of us that are waking up in the West to African spirituality, that's part of the reason why. But how do you feel about a lot of Africans now losing their way? Because we're looking back to them, but they are more lost than we are now.
And again, once we put on our scientific brains and we, you know, apply our microscopes and look more closely at the situation back in the 1990s. And we were talking about not only how we have been colonialized here in America through whether it be via transatlantic slave trade or the crusades and things of that nature. But we look at even with what they call the Aboriginal people in Australia. You look at the Adam and the Jawa people off the coast of the Indian Ocean, the Andaman Islands. And you see those people in a lot of places, we have been colonized. We have basically been, in order for the lighter races of people to succeed, our culture, everything had to basically be destroyed. This is the science in the wind of the European. You understand? Because the European has been scientific. You understand? And he wants to allow us to be still waiting on the Santa Claus or the fictional characters put here for us. And therefore, we will go over, and here in America, we will spend $500 billion for something just to get killed in that church. I made a meme today. We spend $500 billion with God only to go into his house, not to get killed at our own house, but we get killed in God's house. All right, and looking at the brothers and sisters not only on the continent, because if we go looking at the continent, obviously that's where a lot of the raiding, the looting, the theft, the stealing. Looking at Napoleon, he killed millions of Africans on the continent. And looking at what, like I said, going back to 1990s, you had Rwanda. Even in the Hotel Rwanda movie, there was almost 1 million Africans that got killed through a genocide, and the whole world watched and nobody did a thing. And a lot of times that would kind of dampen or defeat your redemption or your redeeming spirit. So that's going to make you feel like, well, hell, if I can't beat them, join them. And I think we see the same thing because stats here, we are pretty much, quote unquote, the free ones in the world here in America. And 80% of our people still believe in that ideology. 80% of our people still gather their resources every Sunday and going back to give to this thing. And after we saw the science, when we got killed in that place, we still take money there. So I think it's about evaluating science, collecting in the diaspora throughout, not only here in America, not only in my state. That's what Pan-African means, and that's what it's going to take in order for us to get back to ourselves, is the worldwide view of Africans, the Africans in Australia, that they're catching hell, the Africans in India, Africans in Israel, they're catching hell, Africans in Africa, Africans in all throughout the whole world, we're catching hell. And we have been utilizing these religions. Obviously, they're not working. They haven't helped us to progress. So I think there's a lot of scientific analysis we're going to have to apply to the situation to actually get us back to our mathematical thinking selves, and that's what we see inside Kemet, because the precision to those buildings, to the monuments that you see in Egypt or Kemet, that's showing the divinity that we have within ourselves and the love for science and appreciation for math and being right, being on point. And now we're a little too shabby. So, I think it kind of goes across the board, even from Africa to here.
But even as you speak, I'm thinking about something. Do you really think it's just a matter of religion that's going to solve like a lot of our problems, or do you see? Because religion is like a byproduct of culture, and what I see more than anything is that we follow a particular culture who happens to be Christian. So like your culture is what gives you your identity. And of course your religion explains your place with, on earth, how you got here, what you're supposed to be doing, all of that. But for the most part, the culture is the overarching I guess, power, to say, so to speak. Because, like I was saying earlier, with the caller that was sharing her experience, most people follow the culture. They're not necessarily following Christianity, because most Christians don't read the Bible or even know the Bible. It's the culture of a particular people that I feel that is what the bigger problem is. What do you think about that?
And you're absolutely right, because going back again to the African, from an African standpoint, family is our religion. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Family is our culture. When you look at community, within that you have common unity. And like the sister said earlier, inside this culture of Christianity, or that lifestyle, what you have is hypocrisy. You have, well, hey, I'm going to love Jesus and I'm going to lift up Jesus, but then when it comes down to actually trying to walk like Jesus, Jesus died for my sins, so really Jesus died for me to be able to be a Satanist, or in order for me to be able to do wrong. This is why Jesus died. He didn't die for me to be able to do, to do the right thing. And that's so how the story goes. And when you get this inside your mind, you start living out the actions inside your culture. So therefore, if it's okay, if Jesus said it's okay, he died for me to do wrong, it's okay for me to go over here and stab my homeboy in the back. It's okay for me to go over here and talk, because Jesus, that's what Jesus came for. Jesus. So I think the actual religion is the internal working. That is the dogma. That is the indoctrination that is embedded into the people that would be sustaining a culture. You understand? Just like even around, maybe in certain communities and areas in America, there is a thing that is indoctrinating our youth, and that has a lot to do with a lot of the crazy music, a lot of the stuff you see on TV. And this is basically the navigation, this is the GPS on how they're going to navigate within their community. You understand? So they get it in there. Once they get it into their mind, that's when you're dealing with religion, the mental capacity, the psychosis. That's what you see within inside religion. So after you get that thing taken over, of course, now you're going to have the people, rather than using their resources to help build and sustain a community within their culture, they'll be going and taking their resources over to a church that doesn't do anything for their community or for their culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for your comment. Again, I'm just going to leave you, I'm not going to mute your mic, so you can, chime in whenever you like, but I'm going to go to another caller that's had their hand up for a while. I believe this is Brother Byron. Greetings, Byron. How are you?
Greetings, Sister Kim. We're doing well, thank you very much. We're doing okay. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you for asking.
Good. Yeah, I've been listening to the show for most of the evening, and I just what stimulated me to call in was the sister caller that your previous to last speaker caller, and when she was speaking about the fear or apprehension when leaving the Christian faith to follow an ATR.
Right.
I just really wanted to comment. What came to me immediately was that when our ancestors were being brutalized during the regime of slavery and enslavement, our DNA captured the trauma. So as we observed or were brutalized, our DNA captured that trauma, and also the trauma of being enslaved. And when we have children, the cells and the DNA hold that trauma and pass that into our offspring.
Right.
And so the fear or the apprehension that she might be having now, it may well be caused by experiences of our ancestors through slavery, where they knew that they had to toe the line or they would more likely be killed. So I just really wanted to share that as a way of her to try and help her understand where that apprehension or that fear might be coming from.
Right.
And that she, through following, I know through following Ifa tradition and so forth, you can help to redesign your DNA to make it more wholesome. So I just really wanted to pass that information on to her so she can try to have she may well know that. She may well know that already. But if she doesn't, I just really wanted to assist or offer some assistance in trying to offer that as something to look at and to work through possibly.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point that you brought up. That that fear is definitely passed down through, like you said, not even through speech and action, but through, down to the cellular level. But for some of us that have, chosen to wake up, do you feel like it's more of, it's the thing to do now? Or do you feel like it's something, because despite having that fear, like you said, down to the cellular level, some of us have chosen to wake up or to rise above that fear. Where do you think that comes from?
I think that comes from our destiny that we were born with. I think that comes with the stronger energy from our ancestors that were around prior to enslavement. Their energies may have been laid over with something new, but they haven't gone. And so some of them will be vibrated at a level where they can penetrate the traumatic experiences of slavery. And even in a snapshot or a sparkling, a twinkling, there'll be something in us, innately in us, that we say, no, this Christianity or Islam isn't for an individual. So I think it comes from there. But also having that dual internal battle of fear and a yearning to return to what we know as African people, then that can cause internal conflict and the ebb and flowing of our ability to take that first step and to maintain it. I also wanted to say that when we place where within our family system, I thought from my experience, when I came to the decision that I was not going to be, clearly not going to be following the Christian faith that I was brought up in, it made a significant shift in the power dynamics within my family. So I come from a family where my parents were in charge, and rightly so. Parents have a level of authority that is appropriate. But when I stepped out of that, it was like I was just making even though I was not, the purpose of me stepping out of the Christian faith was not to challenge my family. It was to do what I felt was appropriate and correct for me and for my own family. But it had the impact of challenging my family and shifting the dynamics and the relationships that I have with my siblings and my parents and so forth. So that was a byproduct of making that step. And that I would just say to the sister just to be aware of that, and it can cause loneliness, but from my experience, it was better to experience that loneliness or to experience some family members not wanting to speak to me for a period of time and remain true to myself and to my own spirit and to my own calling, rather than to be subservient and oppress myself by saying I'm going to remain in the paradigm that you want me to remain in.
Yeah. It, like you said, it can be, something as simple as that can absolutely end a relationship, the relationship that you have with your family, which is horrible. But I wanted to kind of go back to something you were saying earlier, because as you were talking, it brought forth some more questions. We were speaking about, the trauma down to the DNA level. And, like I was saying, a lot of us now have this energy. Like I said, I remember as a young girl being drawn to African spirituality. And I had no clue what it was. It was just that I was just deeply searching for it. Like, where's my story? Where's my history? Like I said, in kindergarten, first grade, 5, 6 years old, I'm looking for it because I'm seeing the behaviors, of my family and how we talk and treat each other. I'm like, something is off here. So that, like you said, it could possibly be, the ancestors prior to those that, that experienced the trauma from slavery that are coming through a bit stronger. Now, I know that once I started getting into our new culture and our new systems, one of the things that helped me kind of try to connect with that energy a little bit more was communicating and working with ancestors a bit more. Because one of the questions that I come across a lot with people is, we don't know our lineage. We don't know our family, history, or, our lineage past maybe 2 or 3 generations. And so for the most part, we're wondering, who are those ancestors and how can I talk to them? How can I communicate with those ancestors that, were here prior to that, that were a little bit further down, further down the line, before slavery. How can what are some things that, that people can do to know those ancestors? Because we don't know those names. Can those names be remembered through certain practices or rituals, or what do you think?
Okay, so what happened I'll talk of my experiences and what worked for me. So at the same time as me commencing to live and follow Ifa tradition, I was very fortunate because I mean, as you know, I'm 50, but my grandfather was alive. My grandfather was alive, and my mother was alive at the time. And they were able to tell me from oral tradition, their family line, going back. I think my mum was able to go back 4 generations, and my grandfather was able to go back 3 generations. And I spent a lot of time with me and my grandfather were very close. So I used to spend a lot of time with him. He used to tell me about customs and rituals that his family did in Jamaica. And when I became more aware of Yoruba culture and Ifa tradition, I began to align a lot of the things that he used to do in his family in Jamaica to what was done in Yoruba tradition. And similarly, I was able to get very good and clear descriptions of some of the ancestors my grandfather knew. So he knew his grandparents. So he was able to tell me about his grandparents, his parents, etc. Then he was able to tell me about some people from his wife's family and her ancestors. So what it made me be able to draw a picture of my family tree and to get an understanding of some of the characteristics of my ancestors. At the same time, I was taking advice and counselling and support from Ian Ifa and a Babalao who helped me to set up my ancestral shrine. I was able to go to Oyotunji and join the Iwungun Society, which has a very beautiful ancestral celebration when your ancestors come down. And the feedback that I got from that was that my ancestors, it was really powerful. My ancestors had a lot to say. So, and from what I came to understand, it was because I was the first person from my line, from my family's line, that had followed Yoruba tradition since the enslavement of my father's line, and so they came through quite strongly, or very strongly. But what I found is that there is such a strength in. I get so much support from my ancestors. My ancestors are able to speak to me not only when I'm but also they come to me in my dreams and so forth. So I found that leaning on the ancestors and asking them for help and support and asking them to help with anything that...
you're breaking up just a bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. Often we can sometimes forget to work and communicate with our ancestors. We're more interested in the Orisha or doing, but our ancestors are our baseline. Our ancestors are in our DNA. Chief has taught us that the reason why we often work with bones is because that is the source of where blood is formed. And so our ancestors, who we are, we are our ancestors. We have come from our ancestors. And I was fortunate enough to understand that my ancestors had a particular role in Nigeria, in Yoruba land, before enslavement. And so that has helped me understand even the characteristics of some of my family as to why they do things in a particular way, because I understand what their traditional responsibilities and duties were when they were living in Nigeria. So for me, the ancestors are our first port of call and our first place where we can get a greater understanding of who we are. And with the support and help of a Babalawo or Ianifa, we can start to walk our appropriate path following cultural tradition in a way that is managed and where we grow appropriately and in a sustained way, rather than learning everything from A to Z and getting an information overload. We can learn little bits, apply, get things right, get things wrong, but learn from that process and develop. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian, for sharing that. I think it's just a really important point to bring up because, like you said, a lot of us do have that, may have had that fear or have gone through that stage. But, like you said, something in us makes you kind of want to break away from that. And it's something that, like I said, for me, it was something that I just could not ignore. I had tried to for a period of time, to try to go along and get along. But, it's like getting off the interstate at the wrong exit. It's like it takes you down a road where it just completely turns your life upside down to where, not listening to that call or whatever can be really damaging to your life. So once I started listening again, things started to shift for me and it got, things started to clear up. But I think it's important that people know, when you hear that voice, that, like you said, that is important, to go to your ancestors and ask questions, ask your family members, talk to cousins or aunts or, great uncles and, this things of that sort to figure out. One of the important things is what did the family do? What was their trade or profession? Because you'll find that, like you said, when you went back, you found that your family or your lineage was responsible for a certain thing. And so that can be a clue as to what our purpose is. Because a lot of times, if you maybe came from a priestly caste, or if you came from, I don't know, a family of metal workers or, teachers or whatever it may have been, can kind of help you figure out what you're supposed to be doing in your life. And apparently, if you are, like Chief would say, the Eshu of your group, you're the one that has woken up or who keeps getting that nudge that something's not right. I think it's important that you do kind of, go on that search and figure out, who your family is, what they did. And like you said, they will speak to you. Because I know just from my own experience, I have a lot of things that come to me in visions and dreams. And for the most part, I remember talking to Chief about this, like, what if you don't know the names of these ancestors, when you're pouring libations and making offerings. And he said, just ask them, what their name is. Ask them who they are. And I remember having several dreams and several visions of ancestors coming to me, telling me who they were. I remember asking them in the dream, like, who are you? And the next day I would go to my mom or my dad or someone and ask them, do we have a family member by the name of such and such? And they're like, oh yeah, that was grandma's, sister or whatever. So it's very real. Like, it does happen. And you can find those ancestors that are, that are there to support you through those transitions where you may feel like, I probably shouldn't do this because, my mom's going to be upset or my parents are going to disown me if I start studying this African stuff. But you will find those ancestors who are there to support you, to help clear the way for you to live out that mission, that purpose, to bring your family back to its original, to bring it back to a certain station, in life, or a certain position in the world.
Certainly, and in my family, so my father was a devout Christian, and he really struggled with my changes, with the changes that I had made. But when there was a period of time when I used to stay with my dad in the last few years because he used to work by where he lives. So I used to stay with him for weeks at a time, weeks and weeks at a time. I used to stay with him, and so I'd be listening to Enlightenment and Transformation or Underground Thursday, and he'd say, and my dad would listen with me and says, "Who's that man? He sounds very intelligent." He's talking about Chief here. He's talking a lot of sense. He sounds very intelligent, until to the degree now that my dad asked me to order the Solution for Dysfunctional Families book a few years ago, and I bought it for him. And he said that's one of his key tools now when he's counselling families who are going through matrimonial difficulties. Yeah, yeah. Wow. So sometimes I find that the objection is because they recognize that you've listened to the voice that they may have been ignoring in their own selves. You've had the courage to say, well, all this what I've been indoctrinated with isn't for me, and I'm going to try and make a shift. And once you start to embrace it, I found that my family members are a lot more open. Yeah, recently my nephew asked me to name his child because he asked me to name his child because they were going through a few difficulties, my nephew and his wife, and I invited him down to speak to my wife and myself. And so we sat and spoke, and the night that they went home, as time would pass, the night they went home, they conceived a child. And so when the child, when he told me, he said it wouldn't have happened if you never invited me down, Uncle. And so, but when he was here, I put my picture of my grandfather and my mother on the table. I lit a candle. I told them that, listen, we're having a dialogue in front of the ancestors here as well as in front of me and my wife. We're having a dialogue in front of the ancestors. And, we want it to be clean, we want it to be pure, and we want to understand that they are also listening to what we're saying here. So, and that's what happened. So I've noticed that my family are a lot more open. One of my brothers, who was acutely turned his back on me, I would say, when I first began African tradition. When his son was sick, he asked me if I could get a reading on his son. And I'm thinking, okay. I said, that's no problem, So it's interesting as to how people, sometimes they present objection, but when push comes to shove,
Right.
They'll embrace African tradition, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping part of that is because they've seen something in my family which is a shining light, and they're wanting some for themselves. I'm hoping that's what it's about as well, you know. So I haven't said that, so that's my hope, you know, that is the case also.
Yeah. I think that's a good point too. I think it is something that they see in you and your family that causes them to do that, because, you know, like I was saying earlier, for the most part, people don't really believe in Christianity the way they say they do. It's more of the culture of it and being a part of society. So like you said, when push comes to shove, you know, they go to the Babalawo, you know.
Yes.
To try to find solutions. Yeah,
and also I know you did say earlier that in Africa many people have turned their back on their traditional practices, but all I can say from my experiences in Nigeria, the devout Muslims and the devout Christians will also go to the Inifa and the Babalawo and get things done. But they will not talk about it publicly. They will deny it if you ask them. They will deny it strongly and quite, you know, with some positivity. They definitely no. But I know it happens. It happens on a regular basis in Nigeria. They'll say, "Oh no, we don't deal with any of that," but they do. Yeah. They do, and often, and what I have observed is that when some of the people that I knew, some of my family, my wife's family in Nigeria, who said they never ever did anything with Yoruba tradition, when we were in Nigeria and we were doing some ceremonies, etc., they knew the songs and the orikis more than myself, my wife, and even the Babalawo, who is Nigerian. They knew some verses that the Babalawo didn't even know.
Wow!
So I had to laugh. I said, "What a thing!"
And they were holding out on you all this time.
Yeah. So, but culturally, it's not appropriate in Nigeria to say that. In most settings, it's not acceptable to say that you practice Yoruba tradition or Yoruba culture.
Yeah.
But people do it.
Yeah, I found that very interesting too. Like I said, the couple that I think I remember his name was Adolfo, that I interviewed on a new Asafo that did the Ancestral Voices documentary. That I think his wife is from the Caribbean and he was from Ghana, and this is through his travels. He said that this is something that was very common. Because I believe he said that his father, growing up, he had I think his father had a couple of wives, but and there was some things that were done, you know, that he had question about, but you know, outwardly, like you said, they were Christian, so they're not into that African stuff. And I think there was a point in that series where it showed a priest, a Babalawo, that was saying that, you know, his business or his home was right next to a church. And he was saying, you know, of course, he'll have, you know, preachers and people, you know, coming to him all the time, you know, asking for rituals or asking for readings, you know, with things, like you said, but never will admit it. You know, they go to church on a regular basis, but when it comes down to it, that's who, you know, they come to see him. So
in the dead of night.
And so I think it was interesting because another thing he was saying, because he's there in London as well, he was saying that, you know, they look to us in the States now for, you know, like this revelation about a lot of African spirituality. He mentioned something about New Orleans, like he was under the impression that like New Orleans was this great mecca for like African spirituality, which I found was very surprising because my family is from the state, and it's very much in the Bible Belt, and nowadays it's not really what people think it is. You know, it's very commercial now. So I just found that to be interesting. But I do see a rise in interest in African spirituality in the United States. And like I said, that, like you said, that could be just this awakening of ancestral energy, before the, of those that were there before the slave trade. It's interesting. I'm wondering, where is it coming from? Is it because it's a fad, or, because this is a thing to do, or is it just, people finally realizing, look, this isn't working? Because I remember listening to Chief on one show where he was saying, like, the ancestors aren't coming back anymore. Like, those brilliant ancestors we once had, he said, they're not reincarnating. So I'm just, I'm just kind of wondering, like, where is all that energy, or where is that spark coming from?
Well, I find that young people today aren't going to accept the conditions that my peers accepted when we were young. In the main, they're a lot more knowledgeable. Even children, I'm raising a family. I see my children who are far more developed at their current age than what I was. I'm certain of it. And even I've got older children, and I can say that my younger children are far more developed than my older children were when they were of a similar age. So I'm seeing that children, African American children, UK African children, we're not accepted. We're not going to tolerate the same conditions anymore.
Right.
And the key thing for me, the key thing is for the elders to try and guide and channel that appropriate energy that they're feeling, and that appropriate will that they've got, to try and channel it in ways that are the most beneficial. And by that, in ways where I feel that they're not pushing on closed doors, but they're pushing an open door and reaping the benefits of going through that open door. I was reading something. I was reading something earlier this week, and it said that white Europeans are around 15% of the world's population, but they own 90% of the wealth. Right. So, if the struggles that we see in the US now, within race relations, etc., it's a lot of it is, well, the majority of it is based on that fact that the wealth is with the white folks, and the African Americans don't have any wealth or any power. So, for me, that 1590 percentile that I've just described, if we flip it over, then if we are 85%, if melanated people are 85% of the world, then let's go to somewhere where we can do something collectively to increase the 10%, rather than ask white people to give us some of their 90%. Right. Because the 10%, that 10% can be developed. That 90%, we could physically try and take it, but that doesn't make any sense. We're better off going somewhere and turning that 10 into 20, 30, 40, 50 over generational periods of time. So, I'm not saying that, aren't I? If I'm recording, I'm saying the same thing.
I definitely agree. One thing you brought up about such a small percentage of people controlling most of the wealth, I find it interesting that, when you look at the stock market and you look at, what their so-called wealth is built on, it's built on commodities from Africa. They are trading our commodities. Like, they would have nothing. Their money is backed by nothing. Their whole wealth system is backed by nothing. It's if they didn't have the raw materials and the resources from Africa, they wouldn't have anything. And so, if anyone's interested, just to study the cycle of debt that goes on with, monetary funds and things that are taken out of Africa, and, the whole debt system of loans and, international banking or whatever in Africa, it's a crazy setup, But, and now it's like China. I remember talking to one of my friends from Ghana saying that China there's like a Chinatown in Ghana. One of the main diets now there are noodles. It's like they have completely come over and just taken over. I remember even seeing a picture of, I don't know which palace it was or whatever, but an Asian guy or somebody had been initiated, and he's sitting there with the crown on and in African, in this African garb and everything. And the article was about just that, how they have just kind of come in and just have taken over. So it's, it's this war between now, China and European powers or American powers to scramble for resources in Africa. And, they don't realize that they are the source of the world's wealth. And so, we have to, like you said, take control of those things that, those resources there that they own,
I think so. And something that I found very powerful, I've forgotten the name of the map. I think it might be called the Peters map or something. So there's a map. So the map of the world that we traditionally see presented to us show that the USA is practically the same size of Africa.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
That's completely wrong. It's about a quarter, a fifth of the size. And there is a map that you can download on the internet that shows the actual landmass of the continent based on the actual size. I'd suggest that everybody listening should get a copy of that, download that, and have a look at it. You'll see that when they say Africa is the breadbasket of the world, they know what they're talking about.
Right.
They know what they're talking about, because it is by far the greatest landmass, by far. By far. And there was just something that came to me, those noodles. Okay, so I've got young children, and those noodles that they wrap in the plastic and they drop in the water and you put sprinkle a bit of seasoning on them. They used to be a very quick meal and a handy meal to give to the children, until I found out that the way they process them and the chemicals they put onto them cause cancer. So the Chinese are going into Africa selling noodles which cause cancer.
Right.
And so the moment I read that, I got the box and I just threw them outside, and I said to my wife, I said, we're going to have to do something else. These noodles can't come in the house, man.
Yeah, they completely wrecked the system. Yeah. There are videos on tons of videos on that. Yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah.
But I think like you were saying, and I've actually seen that map that you speak of, and I think they were able to fit was it 3 or 4 or 5 actual United States into the continent of Africa. When you look at it based on the actual size. So,
including Canada,
I know
including Canada.
Including Canada.
Including Canada.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, our whole, all the information we have is of course skewed and, off. So, but that, like you said, that map is out there. And, I encourage everyone to kind of download that map, put it up in your house, let your kids see it, because they're not going to see it in school. But to realize that, like I said, you look at Wall Street or you look at the stock market, and you realize that they're trading commodities from Africa, but Africans aren't seeing any of this money. They're not seeing any of this wealth. To mine some of those commodities that they sell, these companies, these banking cartels go in and have them to take out loans that they can never repay back to actually mine their own resources to sell them out. And so not only do they sign up for this cycle of debt that they can never repay back, it totally demolishes the land, the water system, messes up the land so bad that you can't, farm it any longer. And then these companies leave behind all this equipment, just to rot, all this stuff there just to rot, and it further damages the land. So it's like they're seriously just coming in and robbing and just tearing up everything, wrecking so much, not only in taking the resources for free, but actually making the Africans there work to help them take it out. You know.
Exactly. And the robbing is blind because I understand there's a mineral that is in most cell phones and iPads and computers. That there's a mineral in there that can only be mined. It's only found in Africa.
Africa. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the country, I forget the country, but I'm sure that country is not benefiting from being the sole owner of that natural resource.
Right.
Not to the extent it should be.
Right. And I just wanted to add too, when you read or you hear these articles about like Africans just shooting people, like they try to make it seem like they're just shooting these people, these workers that come over, you know, randomly for no reason. There's a documentary out as well. Like these Asian companies and other, you know, European companies and things. These people are coming in to these people's backyards, just setting up and extracting resources from the land. And so this is why they're trespassing on people's land, on people's property. And so that's why they're being shot. It's not because they're just so savage and mad that white people are coming or anything like that. It's like, no, you know, they're coming in our backyard, just setting up camp, stealing gold. You know, I can't remember the name of the documentary, but I've seen a few documentaries just on that, how they come, you know, at night, or, you know, they just come and bulldoze and just set up, and, you know, how they have guns, and, you know, then the people, you know, the people who actually own the land have to try to, you know, run them off or try to protect themselves from those miners or from those people who are coming in. So don't believe everything you read, you know.
Exactly. And it's not just Africa. A family member sent me a video from Jamaica where the Chinese have got a big footprint in Jamaica and in the rest of the Caribbean too. Wow. Now, they're extending one of the main motorways or road arteries in Jamaica. And on the whole extension, the signs on the construction site of a motorway, say it's 20, 30 miles, what have you, I'm not sure how long it is, but all of the signage is written in Chinese because the workers are imported from China. And the Jamaicans aren't getting a penny's work from it. The only penny's work they're getting is if a Chinese person wants some food or a drink from a local store. But they're not getting any of they're not training local people in the skills of road building or engineering. They're importing the skills, and then they're doing what they're doing, collecting, and they'll be going.
They'll be going.
It's terrible. And that's in Jamaica. Is you know, it's got its own government. It's meant to be an independent country, but they agree to that type of pillage. You know. Yeah.
I'm going to bring in another caller, Byron, that has their hand up, and we can continue. Thank you for contributing to the show today. Thank you for your comments and sharing.
Thank you. Thank you for your efforts. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. 905, you're on Community Radio.
Hi, greetings, everyone. It's Georgette calling.
Hey, Georgette, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm good.
Okay, that's great. Well, just in response to what Brother Byron was commenting, or the comment that was made in regards to the Chinese monopolizing pretty much everywhere, then we really have to look at the government. I mean, these countries are predominantly black. What's the word I'm looking for? Do you know what I mean? Like black melon. Yeah, that reside there. So why are the government is not stepping up and owning and protecting the people? And you see, it's like a ripple effect, because if the head is not taking care of the bottom, then, you know, how can anybody really benefit and grow? You know, so, I mean, it's one thing when individuals are trying to improve themselves, but it's also another thing when you have head leaders that are not helping in making the livity like easier, or, you know, growth possible on the financial spectrum, in every aspect of it. You know what I mean? So I think that's something that also needs to be addressed. You know, in regards to where we are as a people.
Yeah, I agree with you, Georgette, on that. But another thing that I noticed is that sometimes, like you said, the governments, because if you watched any or pay attention to any election action that goes on in Africa, it's a huge deal. But a lot of times, sometimes the government is has a different agenda. So they may be, making deals or something with, whatever company wants to come in. I feel like a lot of it is kind of it could be, I don't want to say that the government may be slick, but, just like, Native Americans were tricked, just like we were tricked. Sometimes the language barrier, sometimes the, everything is not put out there. And they don't really understand what they're getting into when signing some of these deals, or maybe they do. I don't know, because I'm not saying they're ignorant or anything at all. That is completely not what I'm saying. But there may be some other things going on there. So of course there's corruption, at every level. So it could be a lot of things. But I agree with you. When you're not covered, or when the government can't protect the small, the little people as well, it is a problem. We've got about a couple of minutes left. I'm going to go to 813. Greetings.
Hey, greetings. How you guys doing today? I've been consistently listening in. I've been trying to chime in, but I've been going through work, grown man business.
Okay. Okay.
So, just wanted to give you that update real quick. I have thrown away my crutch. I don't have a crutch no more. So it's been my first real day without the crutch. I did roll up one of my little mint and sage and tobacco spliffs this morning. I hit it like a couple times, and I put it down and got busy. But ever since then, I've been driving around in my car. No issues. No issues whatsoever. No smoking, no cigars, no nothing. So I think I'm as soon as I pass the next 3 days and getting away from the routine of it, I'll be routine of actually smoking something. I'm all right. But I'm okay. I'm good. I'm there. I haven't felt yet.
Thank you for giving us that update. I was worried about you for a minute.
I've been tuning in. I've been listening to the conversation. Everybody has put out some very good ideas and aspects of what we need to do as people. The situation with the black moon, I think very similar along the lines as you, Sister Kim, as the new moons being the new time, and the full moons being the fruition of it, the harvest time of whatever you brought through month to month. I don't really go with the concepts of the end of days, because I think, once again, that book was written by a person with a different culture, different community, different mind state than a lot of people. We didn't think about anything as coming to an end or a beginning. So, you know what I'm saying? Everything has always been, and time is really irrelevant. All we do is just match the time it takes to achieve a certain destiny or goal or whatever we might put forward. That's the only thing that I think that we measure time by, other than us traveling through the stars. So, but that end of days, all those little conspiracy theories, that apocalypse now, and I stopped believing in those a long time ago. And the only reason why is because I felt like every 5 minutes, every year, there comes another doomsday.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's all I got to say about that. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you for calling in, Amara. You always support us. We've actually come to the end of the show. So with that, I'm going to close, and I want to will that everyone have a productive and an enjoyable, fun, as she said, make sure you have fun, strong end. And we'll be back on Tuesday.
And everybody that's on that 62-day fast, hold strong and we'll hold each other's hands. Come on, let's put it together.
Yeah. So we'll come back and we'll visit that again next strong as well for those of you that are participating in the 62-day fast. Okay. So until then, everyone, enjoy your day and thank you for calling in. And we'll talk again next Tuesday. Peace.
Peace.